Hey, I'm Stephanie Fager, and Empower is my middle name. Well, not really, but it should be. I believe that empowered people empower people, and I'm obsessed with empowering you, the nonfiction author, with impactful marketing strategies to help you take your important message and share it with those who desperately need it, want it, and will buy it. As the owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group, and the author of 2 books myself, I have merged my love for reading books, for writing books, and for marketing books to help nonfiction authors with laser-focused strategies and tactics to write books that sell, to promote books to those who need and want them most, and to build meaningful businesses from empowering messages. Think of this podcast as your one-stop shop for marketing insights from an author who has been there and done that and understands exactly where you are. Okay, so go grab a warm beverage. I have a chai tea in hand here for me. And get a comfy blanket because, it's fall, y'all. And get your pens ready too because I'm ready to empower you, the aspiring author, on how to become an empowered writer. This is the Empowered Author Podcast. When I published my first book, I expected to be asked questions about the book's topic, where people could buy the book, and even if I could come speak to their groups about its powerful messages. But in addition to those expected questions came the unexpected ones. The ones such as, hey, Stephanie, I think I might want to write a book. How do I do that? I already have a book I've written, but I haven't a clue what the next steps are. Will anyone want to read my book and buy my book? How in the world do I get published? Could I really build a business for my book? Well, listen, these are all great questions, and I've decided to devote an entire season of the Empowered Author Podcast to giving my take on each of these questions and more. And by the end, be expected to not only be an empowered author, but also an empowered writer. Let's dive in. So, I bet you didn't know that every single day, you, my writer friend, are writing 3 stories. Yes, I know. You're probably thinking, Stephanie, seriously? Writing 1 story is enough. Please, I only have 1 book. It's too big of an undertaking. And I'm not even done with that. So please, Stephanie, don't make me think of 2 more books. Okay, take a deep breath with me. Because I promise I'm not pushing you to write more stories. In fact, our chat today is actually about editing the 2 stories you didn't even know that you were writing. While you are writing a story that will change lives, there are actually 2 more stories that you're writing that have the power to impact yours. And these stories are being written simultaneously. These are the figurative stories that you aren't putting pen to paper to daily, but these are real stories. Ones that you use your voice to create. You see, your voice has power. It has infinite power, immense power. And on the regular, that voice, it's used to write so many stories. One is the story that you're writing. Now that story, it takes your perspective and your voice, and it uses it to inspire other people. But that voice is also writing 2 other stories too. The story we create when we think, and the story we create when we speak. You may be asking yourself, why is Stephanie talking about anything else outside of the manuscript that I'm working on? Because listen, I want to be an empowered writer. Yes, I get it. You're not looking to be an empowered thinker. Listen, I understand. But I also know this. I know that the stories we hold within have more power than we ever will give them credit. And if we don't spend time editing those, much like we would edit our manuscript, we may find a wall that we put up to getting our written story complete. It's really weird how that happens. So today we're going to talk a bit about the 2 other stories that we're constantly writing and editing without even knowing it. And let's figure out how we can write those stories in a way that are going to help us with the physical story that we are writing too. Let's start with the story that we speak. Now, this is the story that the rest of the world sees. It's the one that they can easily read, not on a page, no, but through our actions, through our social media feeds, through what we filter, through what we crop. This is the story that we tell others, the one that we shape what that story is. This is the story that we want them to know. The story is filled with beautiful Facebook posts about everything in life that is going great. It is our Instagram reels that are filtered to show our best side and hide the rest. It's the story that's touched up, that has a filter on it. It's the story that's perfected. This is the story that we speak, and it's one that we might leave people pondering. Look at all the great things that's happening in their life. Look, it's a story filled with perfect kids and the perfect career and the perfect spouse and the perfect home and just the perfect everything. But let's be real for a moment. You and me. Yeah, that's not real. That's not real. If you have kids, or you're married, or you have a job, or you have a home, or I don't know, you have a beating heart, you know that perfect isn't attainable. And behind that story that we are building within, the one that we are speaking, is a very different story. And the truth is, no matter how amazing one's life is, there's always more to the story. There's more to every story. Think about the story you're writing right now. So even that story, you aren't laying it all out there for the whole world. There are pieces of your story, whether it's a nonfiction or fiction alike, that you're holding dear, you're not sharing, right? Maybe it's because you're building suspense, or maybe it's because that portion of your story isn't relevant. It's not valuable. It's not critical to the overarching storyline. But much like that written story, you do the same with your own story. We all do it. Listen, I'm not telling you anything that I myself do not experience myself. You aren't alone. Listen, this is how our culture is created. We've been taught to keep our feelings in, especially when those feelings aren't considered quote unquote normal. We've been formed to want perfection. You know, that white picket fence and the 2.5 kids, or what have you, whatever it is nowadays. Yeah, we're formed to want this. We have been encouraged to cover up our flaws, to focus on fixing our weaknesses instead of loving on our strengths. Can I get an amen there? And we've been trained to shape the story that we speak, to be the story that we want others to hear. That story is important. But here's the crazy part. Right before that story that we speak is a much more dangerous story. One that we need to also dive into. You see, the story that we speak is formed by the story that we think. The voice within us writes an even deeper story that happens behind the closed doors within you. It's a story you may never tell another person, right? It's just the story between you, yourself, and I. But this story has the potential to write a whole different story than the story that you use to speak. The story that you think doesn't stop. Listen, with those Instagram filters, it goes on nonstop. So coming from a PR or marketing background, this is so much like the media world today. This story is like a 24-hour news cycle. It goes on and on and on. And I don't know about you, but even when I close my eyes every night and try to go to bed and get good night's sleep, that story continues to be written in my dreams. Yes, I don't even get a break then. If you do, I am so jealous, but I don't. So sometimes that story is filled with opportunity and potential and excitement, but other times it has a very heavy plot with lots of twists and turns, and it leaves me feeling like a chaotic mix of emotions. And I'm sure it does the same thing to you, right? So these two stories, they're the ones that, you tell others about yourself, and the ones you tell the world about you, and the ones that you use to shape how you see everything. These stories, the one especially that lives within you, is full of lots of things, but mainly it's a multitude of kind of like these one-liners out there. So if your stories have become anything like mine, many days it might say something like this. You aren't good enough. How could you ever accomplish more or be more? How could you be a successful writer and author? Really? Really? How could you be successful at anything? Yeah, I just gave you a glimpse into my inside story, the story I think many days. And it pains me to say this, but I know I'm not alone. You probably have a similar story at times. This story has a crazy heavy plot line, and it's the one that we can't seem to ever break free from. There are days you just can't get out of this story. It's like the song that never ends. It becomes a story that never ends. And yet, in my humble opinion, this is the most important story we will ever write. It's more important than the story we physically write. Yes, this woman who is a book marketing expert and an author herself is the first to say that the story that we think, it shapes everything. It shapes not only what we think, it shapes what we speak, and it shapes, too, what we write. Hey, I'm popping in here for just a second to share that while this episode is really about 2 of the 3 stories that you're writing, remember the story that you think and the story you speak, the Empower PR group is also dedicated to helping you with the story that you are writing. After getting asked time and time again about how to write a book that people will want to buy, I decided to create the Empowered Writer Program. Listen, it's a signature program here at the Empower PR Group, and it provides aspiring authors with the tools they need to bring their messages from the minds to the masses and do it in a way that will ensure their books are ones that readers want, need, and will buy. There's a mix of self-guided content and one-on-one coaching from yours truly, and this program is really dedicated to help you achieve various levels of success, including understanding and writing to your niche, the development of a stronger manuscript and book, and the guidance you need to bring your book to life. Finally! Yes, I'm so excited about this. So visit empowerprgroup.com/theempoweredwriter to get all the details. And then let's schedule a time to chit chat. See if this program's a good fit for you or if there's other ways that the Empower PR Group can help you. Okay, enough about that. Let's get back to the other 2 stories we're writing. Our thoughts have power. They can shape us to be something awesome, or they can be the culprit to hold us back. So the story that we are thinking can be the missing link between us and where we want to go and our own success. And because all of these stories are interconnected, it's really critically important that we make this commitment to always edit them, right? Constantly. So we know we need an editor when, we're about to take our manuscript and bring it to the masses. Like that's a no-brainer. And listen, stay tuned because we have an awesome episode coming up later in this season where we talk all about all things manuscript and editing. Okay. So that's important and that's coming. But the editing experience, it needs to be embraced in all of our stories. If there's anything for certain, it's that they need to be embraced in all of our stories. So how in the world do we edit the story that we think? Well, there is actually a way, but it requires a little bit of commitment on your end. So, raise your right hand and make the commitment to me that, I, insert your name, am making the commitment to edit my own stories, right? Okay. If you do, I promise that this is going to be powerful in your life. And it might be something you have to work on regularly because listen, old stories creep in, but let's talk about the new stories. So have you ever felt like your life is a broken record, right? No matter what you do, the frustrating parts, they just keep coming back. This record of things can go on and on and on and on with no end in sight. But listen, you're ready for change. You are ready to shift that story that you think. And yet every time you try, you hit a hurdle. Please tell me I'm not the only one out there who has experienced this. Something just doesn't go as planned. That broken record, it comes back and it's filled with things like this. Something well, of course this is happening. It always happens like this to me. Or why do I even try? I am so destined to be doomed. And maybe you just get to the point where you say this, I give up. I give up. I can't do anymore. And listen, as a mom of 3 in the thick of COVID, where I'm homeschooling my kids and running a business and doing all of the things, I would be lying to you if I didn't say that those thoughts have been a part of my broken record before. But my fellow writer and author friend, take a deep breath and know that at times this record player that's running on constant loop becomes something that we can control a bit. Hear me out. So the story we tell ourselves on this record player, it gets momentum. You can't see me right now, but I'm putting my thoughts on a record player and it goes around and around and around. And the more that thought stays there, the more energy it gets. And that energy causes that record player within yourself and that story that you're thinking to get momentum. And what happens is it can't stay on the record player anymore. It's going to fly off. That's happened before, right? Those of y'all who are listening who understand what a record player is and have experienced one yourselves in your childhood, you can't put something on there and it stay. It's going to fly off. So what happens is that momentum, that story we think, the things we're telling ourselves within, it gets momentum and it starts to impact the story that we speak, the story that is written as we use our words to articulate what we're thinking within. So the things that we tell ourselves end up happening in our life. They end up, if your broken record is full of negative energy, like weirdly enough, you start attracting this negative energy. If those thoughts are things that are pulling you down and weigh on you on the what ifs, could haves, should haves, I can't, I won't, I never will, like that will happen because nothing can stay on that record player and not gain momentum. Okay? So I know that's a little depressing, but I'm telling you this not on the depressing side. In fact, I'm telling you this because once you know that about yourself and just about how our thoughts have power and the story we shape within ourselves impacts the story that we speak, then something really cool happens. Then you have the ability, weirdly enough, to take a little bit of control back, right? So what if I told you that possibly the reason you might not have been able to achieve the things that you've looked at before, or possibly the reason that maybe you haven't written your book and published it yet, or possibly the reason that you haven't achieved the success you've dreamed of isn't always due to outside factors. Like maybe it's due to what's happening within you, and it's connected to this story that you're thinking. Would you hear me out if I told you that maybe we can't control everything in life out here, outside of you. But what if the things that are holding you back are within you and you can change that broken record player, that internal loop, by changing the story that you think? Like, would you do it? Would you believe me? Would you take a step and give it a try? So I've talked to y'all before about the book that I wrote that really changed everything for me. Quite frankly, it's why I'm here today, sharing my story and inspiring and motivating and empowering other women and men out there who are motivated to become amazing authors and entrepreneurs. So in 2018, I wrote that book. It's called Color Today Pretty, an inspirational guide to living a life in perspective. And I wrote this book because it was really heavy on me about how can I myself get off of this loop, this constant loop in life. So I wanted to share, with others on how to do that. And I want to take a moment to share a little bit about something I've walked away from in the several years since the book's come out, and the speaking opportunities and the stories I've heard that I've had since. So we have to start with our internal story to do that, because quite frankly, wherever you want to go in life, whoever you want to be in life, whatever you want to do in life, all depends on the story you think. And I promise I am not that woo-woo, pie in the sky, rainbows and butterflies human being. I am about as real as you're going to get. I'm about as authentic and honest as you'll come across. I don't live in the clouds, y'all. So when I'm the one telling you that your thoughts have power, please hear me and listen to me and believe me. And maybe if you don't believe me, a better question might be to you is like, if I tell you this, would you figure out a way to like toss out that record and find a new one? If I was right, like, would you just give it a try? I had someone the other day say, if you're a little bit like unsure of the next step, like just give it a try. What does it hurt to give it a try? Right? So can you just give this a try? I like to start with this internal story with anyone that I work with and with you guys today, because I believe that broken record, if we can align that to be a broken record that's, listen, because the broken record's still going to be there, but can we use it as a story of possibility, of worthiness, of truth? Maybe something beautiful can happen. So this voice that we have within that writes the story that you think is talking non-stop. Like, it's probably talking to you right now. I know mine is. Have you ever had that out-of-body experience where you're talking and you're thinking at the same time and it's odd? Yeah, that's that story. It's like creating something while you're experiencing, and sometimes it's shaping how you see it. Right? And sometimes it's creating a story that, quite frankly, is just completely different and not real to what the rest of the world sees. It's just not real. That record player where you're putting all your thoughts and your stories on, it very, very, very much likely is full of things that aren't real. They're not real. And that record player never stops. So that record player typically is filled with things that are not real, and it goes on nonstop. Seriously. It's got full of all those one-liners and windy plots. They're going to always be there, and that story's going to gain momentum. But you have the choice to decide what you put on that record. I mean it. You have the choice to decide what you're going to give momentum to. You have the choice to determine if you're going to write a story of accuracy or one full of fallacies. Let me say that again. You have the choice to determine if you're going to write a story of accuracy or one full of fallacies. Whatever story you place on that record will one day have so much momentum that it just can't stay within, and it will begin to shape the story that you speak. And what happens is the stuff that you're using to think, that story you're telling yourself in there, that story of, I'm not good enough. How could I ever achieve that? Why would anyone ever want to work with me? Why would anyone want to pick up my book and read my story? Why would my book even be successful? Why would someone want to start with me? Why me? Why me? Why me? It starts to become the story that you speak. It's weird. It's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. Look it up in psychology. It's a real thing. And things start to happen that you thought, maybe it could never happen. Maybe I don't want it to happen, but I think it might. It will. You put it on that record, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. What happens is you're not going to be good enough for an opportunity. What you told yourself is going to be reality. And then, you're not going to achieve what those goals are. And people aren't going to want to collaborate with you, or your book might not hit that successful mark that it deserves, because you started within and wrote a story that is just downright inaccurate. It's not true. It is not true. You are good enough, and you are what you tell yourself. So what happens is, as you speak these fallacies, other people start to treat you that way. Like, if you don't put yourself on a high enough pedestal of worthiness and worth, why would anybody else in this world? Like, they all got their own stories going on. So you have to make sure that that story's in alignment. Maybe you never thought just of how that flow happens before, but what you think is weird, and it becomes what you speak. And I usually like to add that it also becomes what you seek. Weirdly enough, all three of those things are in complete alignment. So how powerful, literally, how powerful is it that what you think, when you think about it at first, crazy things will start to happen, and they can be good. So if you know that internal loop is going to be a broken record made of one-liners and plot issues, and it's going to gain momentum, why not shift those stories? So start telling yourself things that are going to push you forward. Things that are going to propel you. What if that you use that broken record to have power to not create only a self-fulfilling prophecy, but to do what is also called the law of attraction, and start pulling people towards you that are going to help you and help you grow. What if all those negative thoughts you tell yourself, like you just one day wake up and say, sorry, story within, not listening, not buying that book, right? Not doing it. Instead, I'm going to write another one. And that other one is going to be full of things that are possibilities, right? Have you ever sat down to write for one day and you're like, I just can't think of anything. Like, where do I begin? Or, you look at the laundry pile, and maybe I'm sharing too much about my personal life here, but it's never ending 5 people in laundry. How are you going to get through it all? Oh, I don't know. You're just going to start. You're just going to start doing it. But if you tell yourself, I can never do all of this. I'll never be able to get that chapter done. I'll never be able to get the laundry done. My house will never be clean. I'll never have a business that I want that's built from this book and this message. I'll never get out of this toxic environment at work. I'll never get out. All these things. Then you never will. So shift it. Tell those, say, I'm done. I'm writing a different story. Why not? Why not do it? It's not a whether, and it's not a whether if you could. It's not a story of whether you could or not. Instead, it's a whether you should do it. And the answer is yes. It's not why not. It's not I can't. It's yes, you can. One of those mottos, that I can, is a part of what I use in my coaching programs with my authors. And I have them say things like this: I can, I will, I did. I can, I will, I did. I can do anything. And look, like this, so you start by identifying in your mind, that story within, what can I do? I don't want you to talk about what you can't do. Go read Strengths Finders if you haven't. And it talks about, listen, all your weaknesses, you can't fix them, y'all. You can try, but it's not going to work. But instead, you've been gifted with a beautiful suite of amazing strengths. So stop focusing on your weaknesses. Focus on your strengths. What can you do? I can. I will. Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. This is what I'm going to do to support the things that I know are possible. And then guess what? They'll happen. I did. I can. I will. I did. They will happen. I promise you. Like that's like 100% guarantee they will happen. And I'm living proof of it, y'all. On so many accounts, I'm living proof of them. So these positive thoughts you tell yourself creates this positive energy. And it's built on things like optimism and opportunity. And it's like telling yourself like, anything you can ever do, you can do. And anything I can ever achieve, I will. And what level of success, I'll throw that out the window. I'm going to go even farther. And you're starting to tell yourself stuff that might not feel right now, but in the future, you're going to listen to, because whatever gets put on that record, if you continue to put it on it, it won't go away. And you're going to make this shift within where something beautiful starts to happen. Something beautiful will happen, and that broken record can be used for good. And it's going to. And those positive thoughts are going to get momentum, and they're going to get energy. And the story you created, the story you thought, is going to become a story that you speak. And the one that's out there, and it will shape the story that you write, let me promise you that, because you're going to get energy to be able to finish and to move forward. And you're going to tell yourself, like, listen, I'm not only successful, but I'm going to be like doing awesome stuff. Like, I'll be a best-selling author. My book's going to do amazing things. Like, so much potential is right around the corner. And because of that, you have a message. And that message is going to change and inspire people. Like, it will. It absolutely will. That law of attraction will happen because you start to think positive. Good things will come from that broken record. It doesn't become that song you can't stand, like, the broken records that, just repeat themselves on the negative. No, this becomes like a song you can't get out of your head because you love it so much. You want to sing it, that you don't mind it being stuck in your mind, right? Like, so I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. I want you to reflect on the synopsis of the story that you're writing. Maybe you've already written it. Maybe you already published it. But think about that synopsis. That's your literal book, the manuscript. That's what I'm talking about. And then I want you to ask yourself, what's the synopsis of the story that I speak? What's the synopsis of the story that I tell the rest of the world? The one that they see. And then I want you to ask yourself, what's the synopsis of the story that I think? What's that story? And be honest with yourself, because listen, you can only shift your thoughts to a place of positivity on that broken record if you're honest with yourself in the process. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to tell me. But have that conversation with you, yourself, and I, and be honest. And then make a commitment to yourself to constantly look at your stories through a critical editing lens and ensure that your stories both inspire you and they inspire others. That's the goal of our books anyways, right? And how much more fulfilled of a life we can be if we can align all three of those stories. Y'all, anything is possible. I promise you. I believe in it. Weirdly enough, I believe in manifestation and positive thoughts and how the universe and God, whatever you want to call it, will give you what you ask for. I believe in the fact that good can come from not good, and I can write you a whole nother book since Color Today Pretty came out in 2018 of all of the good that's come from not good opportunities. All because I decided to shift how I saw them, and I started to think about the great things I wanted to come from them. You feel like you can't control big portions of your life, and you might not be able to. But the one thing you can control is your reactions and your responses and how you think about what those things are and how you let it stick to you or not. All right? So anything is possible. And those three stories, the ones that you're writing, the one that you think, the one that you speak, the one you've written down on paper, they all have power. They all have power. Never in a million years forget that. See, I told you were writing 3 stories and you didn't even know it. The other 2 stories you are the author of, remember, the story that you speak and the one that you think, have tons of power in your life, though. Almost more than the story you are writing and will one day publish. And the 3 stories that are all a part of you are truly interconnected. Without shifting the story you think, how could you ever accomplish what your hopes and dreams are? And without shifting the story you speak, how could you ever attract the beautiful opportunities into your life? And the story you write, well, it's meant to inspire people. But it can't do that if you aren't yourself being inspired. Remember the motto we use here at the Empower PR Group: I can, I will, I did. When you find yourself struggling, remind yourself of what you can do and then do it. And then celebrate when you have. I promise, if you put energy into the story you think, the rest will fall in line accordingly. Writing a book is one of your stories, and marketing that story can be a bit of a challenge for some. Listen, that's where we come in. The Empower PR Group loves helping authors market their books, but we also realize that one of the best ways to market and sell a book is to write a book people will buy in the first place. The Empowered Writer Program is one of the Empower PR Group's signature programs dedicated to helping aspiring writers and authors who've begun drafting their manuscript ensure that you are writing a book that both meets your needs and those of your readers. This program is a 12-week collaborative experience that includes a mix of self-guided content and reflection with dedicated one-on-one coaching time with myself, Stephanie Fager of the Empower PR Group. And we will take a deep dive into your manuscript to ensure that it's prepped and ready for whatever publishing journey you want to embark upon. I'd love to chat with you. Let me see if this program's a good fit for you. So let's schedule that. Go to empowerprgroup.com/the empowered writer to learn more. All right, now, you know that I'm a believer that empowered people empower people, and getting those 3 stories in alignment are definitely going to power people and empower you. And I've also empowered you today, aspiring author. Now it is your turn to empower and inspire others.